In 2003, a 24-year-old young but extremely experienced and decorated Kobe Bryant, he broke out and averaged 30 points for the duration of the entire NBA season. Now, this was directly after the Lakers had just won 3 straight NBA championships behind the most dominant force the league has ever seen, Shaq. Shaq originally came to LA and naturally became like the big bro type to Kobe, even if Kobe didn't accept it. Shaq was older than Kobe by 6 years, he had already been to the NBA Finals, and he was easily a top 2, top 3 player in the sport. Shaq had obviously lived up to the inevitable hype and pressure that comes with the big of his status putting on that uniform. But this specific season that I'm talking about, the season that Kobe averaged 30, this seemed to be the beginning of the end of such a special duo. Directly after winning those 3 NBA championships, the Lakers started out terrible, and I mean, it got really bad. This was because the most dominant player in the world, Shaq, he decided to have toe surgery a little bit later than he probably should have. And of course, that pissed off Kobe. In the Lakers' first 12 games, they started out 3-9. The defending NBA champions were 3-9, and Shaq had this infamous quote about why he got surgery so late. "I got hurt on company's time, so I'll rehab on company's time." I believe this was a prime example of why Kobe said stuff like this about Shaq.
Who would Shaq be if he had your work ethic?
He'd be the greatest of all time. He'd be the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time by a mile.
Sure. He'd be the first to tell you that, for sure. I mean, this guy was a force like I have never seen. I wish he was in the gym. I would have had fucking 12 rings.
Now, I emphasize that story that probably every NBA fan knows. Why? Because yesterday felt like, to me, a mini version of that. Tyrese Maxey is obviously not Kobe, and Joel Embiid is very dominant in his own way, but he's clearly not Shaq. But even with that being the case, the nightmare start to Philly's season right now seems very comparable to the Lakers at that time. It's just a way less accomplished version of that. Reportedly, Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid for basically setting a bad example for the team, being tardy and basically unprofessional in team meetings. Joel Embiid is 30 years old right now, and his longest tenured teammate currently is Tyrese Maxey, who's 24. Those were the exact same ages as Kobe and Shaq at that time. Tyrese Maxey started out the year basically trying to carry that Philly team without Joel Embiid and Paul George. And if you want to know exactly how, he led the NBA in field goal attempts and minutes. Kobe Bryant that year, and I get somebody is saying, why are you comparing these two? But just follow me. That season, he led the league without Shaq in field goal attempts and minutes at 24 years old, just like Maxey. Both teams desperately needed their big guy, and why this comparison is purposefully disrespectful to Shaq is exactly where Shaq had just came from. Joel Embiid basically missed the entire season last year, and he came back for the end of the playoffs. Shaq had just played the majority of the regular season games the previous 3 years, and he had an additional 58 playoff games where, unlike Embiid, he actually performed. Joel Embiid for this generation, he's one of the most dominant players in the league by far, and to me, he was supposed to be the modern day Shaq. I believe that's why Shaq is so hard on him.
As a leader, you have to lead by example. When you come in and say, I'm not going to play back-to-back, to give the guys that are not really focused, it gives them time to say, well, if he's not going to play hard, I'm not going to play hard. My question to him would be, how do you want to be remembered? You want to be remembered?
Stephen A. Smith, he loves to say this about Kawhi Leonard. And to me, I believe it applies to actually Joel Embiid.
Kawhi Leonard should be on the list of one of the worst superstars this game has ever seen. That's right, I said it.
Now, what exactly would qualify one as the worst superstar ever? Well, first of all, obviously you have to be a superstar. I tweeted this after the Joel Embiid news broke yesterday, and somebody replied and asked me, are you always negative? Are you always critical? Like, can you be positive to anybody? Well, let me actually be positive about Joel Embiid for a quick second. When I say this, I mean it. Joel Embiid, to me, is supposed to be the modern day Shaq. In my young era of watching hoops, people always made the Shaq comparison with Dwight Howard, but I simply don't think he was ever dominant enough offensively to ever really have that crown. Respectfully, because I do think Dwight Howard is one of the more disrespected players of our era, but the most points he ever averaged in his entire career was 23 points a night. Shaq did that as a rookie. Joel Embiid fits the size and the play style with how dominant he is in a modern way. 2 years ago, Joel Embiid became the first center since Shaq to lead the NBA in scoring, and he became the first center in 40 years to average 30 points a night. So how dominant and skillful he is in that big-ass frame, again, he should be the modern-day Shaq. The problem is, he's just not. This year, with these players, the 76ers are literally the worst team in the entire NBA. Now, keep in mind, going into the season, this was the overall sentiment around Philly. Everyone thought they won the offseason.
These people are so excited to have you in Philadelphia. And I said, yo, man, he was the best free agent. Them going out getting Drummond also. I like Eric Gordon. I like Caleb Martin. I think y'all just got Reggie Jackson. The Sixers have had the best summer of any team in the NBA.
The reason they can't even live up to any of this is because their superstar is arguably the most unreliable star in the sport. I get Joel has tried to walk it back a little bit now because he's seen how bad it sounded. But to me, it was always a bad message to a new team to automatically say, yeah, I'm probably done playing back-to-backs ever. These are the fake-ass Big Three averages last year and why everybody got so excited. And this is their team's average 13 games into this very early year. They're literally the worst team in the sport. We know this is because their players literally don't play and their Big Three still has yet to play a game together. It's almost like Phoenix last year and the Clippers Kawhi Paul George saga merged all into one. What has to make it so frustrating for Philly fans is how good they looked last year, even without James Harden. This was their record last year without Joel Embiid, and this was their record with him. They were literally on pace for 65 wins when he played. And in my opinion, going back to last year, this team has done everything possible to appease Joel Embiid's career. They hired Nick Nurse. This man's name is so fitting because he caters to diva-type superstars. They literally had the biggest offseason move of the entire summer. They drafted well. They paid Tyrese Maxey their most improved player. To me, they're doing their part. Where are you? And then in the report, Joel Embiid reportedly said he's confused as to what's going on the court. Well, that's probably because you don't play. Also, Joel Embiid acts as if he doesn't have the ball in his hands every single play. He doesn't know how to operate. We've seen this in the Olympics, and it's like we're seeing it now. I know, like always, he's not healthy, but this is the lowest he's ever touched the ball in his career, and he's obviously struggling. I get he's talented. I get that. But for me, at least, he's the most unreliable star that I've ever seen. Not a leader, gets worse in the playoffs, and then he's barely there fully. If you guys like this video, let me know in the comment section how you feel about Philly and specifically Joel Embiid. To me, like I said, he's the worst superstar that I think I've ever seen, bro. He just has to be. Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.